I was down to 92 pounds by the time our daughter turned 3 months old. My milk barely flowing as he counted every cracker, every sip of water that passed my lips. "You need to lose that baby weight," he'd whisper, fingers digging into my collarbone, while our newborn cried in hunger against my chest. Both of us starving in plain sight. The pediatrician's waiting room spun around me that Tuesday morning. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps as I clutched Emma to my hollow chest. My vision narrowed to pinpricks, darkness creeping in from the edges. The last thing I remember was a woman in scrubs rushing toward me, her mouth forming words I couldn't hear as my baby slipped from my arms. Would you believe the doctor who finally noticed wasn't even my doctor, but a stranger who saw me collapse in the pediatrician's waiting room? Tell me in the comments where you're listening from, and if you're a mother, stay strong. Leave a like, subscribe. Before Jason, I was Sarah Campbell from Pine Creek, Arkansas, is a small town where everybody knew your business before you did. Daddy ran the hardware store, Mama taught 3rd grade at the elementary school, and I was their only child, treasured but expected to stand on my own 2 feet. I was always the responsible one. While other girls were sneaking out to parties, I was working part-time at the library, saving for college. I had dreams of becoming a nurse, of helping people, of making something of myself beyond the town limits. "You're too serious, Sarah," my high school boyfriend told me when we broke up senior year. Maybe he was right. I didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't break curfew. I believed in doing things the right way, finish school, get a job, fall in love, build a family. In that order, by 25, I had my nursing degree and a position at Memphis General. I rented a tiny apartment with a balcony just big enough for a potted tomato plant. I called my parents every Sunday. I volunteered at a women's shelter once a month. I was building the life I thought I wanted, but sometimes in the quiet of my apartment, I'd feel this emptiness. My coworkers were getting engaged, having bridal showers, posting honeymoon photos. I told myself I was happy for them, that my time would come when it was right. Then one rainy Tuesday, Jason Wheeler came into. The Ia with a sprained wrist, dark hair, green eyes, and a smile that made my heart skip. He was charming, funny, so attentive when I wrapped his wrist. "You have the gentlest hands I've ever felt," he said, his eyes never leaving mine. He asked for my number. I hesitated. We weren't supposed to date patients. But his patient status ended the moment he was discharged. I reasoned. What harm could come from coffee? Our first date lasted 6 hours. He listened like no one ever had, asked questions about my hopes, my fears, my childhood. He remembered everything: my favorite flower, daisies, how I took my coffee, 1 sugar, splash of cream, the name of my childhood dog, Rusty. "I've been waiting my whole life to find someone like you," he told me on our 3rd date. I believed. Jason wasn't just attentive, he was omnipresent. Flowers delivered to the nurse's station, surprise lunches, text messages throughout my shifts. "Just thinking about you, missing your smile, counting the minutes until I see you again." My coworkers sighed with envy. "Girl, he's perfect," my friend Tanya said. "Lock that down before someone else does." 3 months in, he took me to meet his parents in Nashville. His father was a retired Army colonel, his mother soft-spoken and deferential. They seemed nice enough, though his father dominated the conversation while his mother barely spoke. I noticed how she looked at him before answering any question directed her way. "My parents are old-fashioned," Jason explained on the drive home. "Dad believes in traditional roles. It worked for them for 40 years. I nodded, but something about it left me uneasy. Still, I pushed it aside. Jason wasn't his father. 6 months into dating, he suggested I move into his house. "Why waste money on rent?" he reasoned. "My place is bigger, closer to the hospital. It makes sense." I hesitated. Wasn't it too soon? But Jason was persistent. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Sarah. You're the one." The night I agreed, he presented me with a diamond ring. Not a proposal, a promise. "Soon," he said, sliding it onto my finger. "When the time is right." I wore it proudly, already planning our future in my mind. Moving in, I noticed small things. How he rearranged my books without asking. How he commented when I ordered dessert. "Are you sure you want that, babe? Summer's coming." He suggested I switch to night shifts. "We have mornings together," he said, but night shifts meant fewer friends, less socializing. I agreed anyway, wanting to make him happy that my parents came to visit. Mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. "You've lost weight, honey. Are you okay?" Jason and I started running together. I explained, "He's helping me get fit." "You were fit before," she said, frowning. But then Jason walked in, charming as ever, and the moment past my calls home became less frequent. When Tanya invited me to her birthday dinner, Jason reminded me we had plans that night plans I didn't remember making. When I got an invitation to my college roommate's wedding, he questioned why I'd want to travel all that way for someone you hardly talk to anymore. One by one, the threads connecting me to my old life began to fray. The proposal came on my birthday in front of his. Friends, people I barely knew but had become our social circle. A public spectacle that left no room for anything but yes. I told myself the knot in my stomach was excitement, not dread. We married 3 months later in his family's church. My parents looked concerned when I walked down the aisle, 10 pounds lighter than when I'd bought my dress. But they smiled for the photos, trusting my happiness. I was happy, wasn't I? The changes were so gradual I barely noticed them, like water slowly rising around my ankles, then my knees. Until suddenly I was drowning. It started with the joint bank account. "We're married now," Jason reasoned. "What's mine is yours." My paycheck went straight into our shared account, but somehow I always had to ask before making purchases. "Just so we're on the same page financially," he'd say. Then came the comments about my appearance subtle at first. "That shirt doesn't really flatter you, babe. Maybe go easy on the pasta tonight. I like your hair better straight." Always delivered with a smile, always for my own good. Our first major fight happened 6 months into our marriage. I gained 3 pounds, and he'd left a women's fitness magazine open on the kitchen counter, folded to an article titled "Marriage." "Wait, don't let yourself go." "I just want you to be healthy," he insisted when I confronted him, his voice gentle but his eyes hard. "I want us to grow old together. Is that so wrong?" That night, he held me close in bed, whispering how much he loved me, how he only wanted the best for me. I fell asleep believing him, hating myself for doubting. The food tracking app appeared on my phone the next day. "So we can support each other," he explained. But only my meals were logged, scrutinized, commented on. I started skipping lunch to stay within the calorie limits he deemed appropriate. When I lost 5 pounds, his approval was intoxicating. "You see? I knew you could do it." Work became a battleground. My 12-hour nursing shifts were too long. My male colleagues, a concern. Jason started showing up unannounced at the hospital, just bringing my wife lunch. He'd tell my coworkers with that charming smile. But his eyes tracked my every movement, noted every interaction. When I missed a call from him during a code blue, I came home to find him sitting in the dark. "Where were you?" he demanded. I explained about the patient, the emergency. His face softened immediately. "I was just worried," he said. "You know, I couldn't bear if anything happened to you." I transferred to the women's health floor the following week. Fewer emergencies, more predictable hours. Less explaining. 3 weeks after our first anniversary, the pregnancy test showed positive. 2 pink lines that changed everything. I'd stopped my birth control 2 months prior, not because we decided to have a baby, but because Jason had flushed my pills down the toilet during an argument. "You've been poisoning your body with hormones," he'd said. "No wonder you're so emotional lately." When I showed him the positive test, his reaction confused me. No joy, no excitement, just calculation in his eyes. "Well," he said finally, "I guess we'll need to be extra careful with your diet now. You're eating for 2. I nodded, not yet understanding that eating for 2 wouldn't mean eating more in Jason's world. It would mean eating for 2 people, combined on less than what had sustained me alone. Pregnancy should have been my salvation. I'd cared for enough expectant mothers to know the basics. eat when hungry, rest when tired, gain 25 to 35 pounds. Simple biology. But Jason had different ideas. You only need an extra 300 calories a day, he'd remind me, hovering as I prepared my breakfast. That's one piece of toast with peanut butter, not two. He downloaded a pregnancy tracking app and took control of it, monitoring my symptoms, my weight, my food intake with scientific precision. Each morning began with a ritual, me standing naked on the bathroom scale while he recorded the number, his frown deepening if it had risen since yesterday. Morning weigh-ins are standard prenatal care. He insisted when I objected. I'm just being thorough. At 8 weeks, morning sickness hit like a tidal wave. I couldn't keep anything down before noon. Jason seemed pleased. Most women gain too. Much in the first trimester, he said, holding my hair back as I retched into the toilet. You're ahead of the curve. My first prenatal appointment should have been a joyful milestone. Instead, it became another battlefield. Jason charmed my obstetrician, Dr. Winters, with his knowledge of fetal development and nutrition. We're really focusing on clean eating, he told her, his hand possessively on my knee. Sarah tends to crave sweets, but we're keeping it in check. Dr. Winters smiled approvingly. It's wonderful to see such an involved father-to-be. Most dads don't show up until the gender reveal. In the privacy of her exam room, with Jason stepping out for a call, I tried to explain. I'm actually losing weight, I whispered. I'm hungry all the time. But Jason returned before she could respond, and the moment passed. She prescribed prenatal vitamins and sent us on our way. Those vitamins became another control point. These have iron, Jason would say, doling out the exact dosage. Too much can be toxic. Some mornings, I noticed the pill looked different, smaller. When I questioned him, he dismissed my concerns. Pregnancy brain, they're the same ones. By my second trimester, the sickness faded, replaced by a hunger so intense it woke me at night. I started hiding granola bars in my purse, eating them quickly in hospital bathrooms during shifts. The secrecy felt ridiculous. I was pregnant, for God's sake. I was supposed to eat, yet at home every bite was monitored. Jason prepared my meals. With scientific precision kale smoothies, measured portions of lean protein, carefully counted almonds. Growing a healthy baby, he called it. But my body told a different story. At 24 weeks, Dr. Winters frowned at my chart. You've only gained 9 pounds total, she noted. That's on the low end. How's your appetite? Before I could answer, Jason jumped in. She eats constantly, he laughed. I can barely keep the fridge stocked. The lie hung in the air between us. I said nothing. The baby is measuring small, Dr. Winters continued, looking at my ultrasound. Not dangerously so, but I'd like to see more growth before your next visit. Try to increase your caloric intake. In the car afterward, Jason fumed. She doesn't understand nutrition like I do. These doctors just follow generic guidelines. That night, my dinner portion was smaller than usual. Emma arrived 3 weeks early. A tiny 5-pound bundle with a wisp of dark hair and lungs that worked. Just fine, thank you very much. My water broke during dinner, a carefully measured portion of grilled chicken and steamed broccoli. Jason's first concern wasn't me or the baby, but the mess on his imported kitchen chair. The birth itself remains a blur of pain and confusion. Jason insisted on a natural delivery. Women have been doing this for thousands of years without drugs. He said, as if childbirth were a test of character I was expected to pass. 18 hours of labor, and he never left my side, never stopped. Coaching, directing, controlling. Don't scream, he hissed when a contraction nearly split me in two. You're embarrassing yourself. When Emma finally emerged, red-faced and indignant, they placed her on my chest. For one perfect moment, nothing else mattered. Not the pain, not the nurses bustling around us. Just my daughter's heart beating against mine. She's beautiful, I whispered. Jason leaned over, inspecting her like he might approach us. She's small, he said, underweight. The doctor chuckled. She's premature but perfectly healthy. She'll catch up in no time, especially with good feeding. As if the word feeding flipped a switch, Jason's attention locked onto my chest. When will her milk come in? He asked the nurse, not me. She needs to breastfeed. Formula is full of chemicals. The lactation consultant visited that afternoon. Jason took notes as she explained latch techniques and feeding schedules. He asked about calories burned during nursing, whether breastfeeding would help me get my figure back. Breastfeeding mothers need extra calories, she emphasized, looking at my thin frame with concern, about 500 more per day than pre-pregnancy. Jason nodded seriously. We'll make sure she eats right. My mother arrived the next day, teary-eyed and bearing gifts. She gasped when she saw me 30 pounds below my pre-pregnancy weight, hollow-cheeked, exhausted. "Sarah, honey," she whispered, hugging me carefully. "Your skin and bones. Just the stress of labor," I lied. "I'll bounce back." She didn't believe me. I saw it in her eyes, but Jason never left us alone long enough for her to ask more questions. My milk came in painfully the third day, my breasts swollen and hot. Emma latched eagerly, but Jason hovered nearby, watching the clock. 10 minutes per side, no more. He instructed. "You'll spoil her if you let her comfort nurse." We brought Emma home to a nursery Jason had painted pale yellow. Gender neutral, he called it, though we'd known she was a girl for months. I realized later it was so he could easily repaint it for the next baby, the boy he wanted to adopt my mother. Stayed for a week, cooking nourishing meals that Jason subtly discouraged me from eating. "Sarah's trying to lose the baby weight," he'd tell her with a wink. "Don't tempt her." The day she left, she pressed a piece of paper into my hand. "My friend's daughter went through something similar," she whispered. "Call this number if you need help." I never got the chance to see what the paper said. Jason found it in my pocket that night and tore it to pieces. The system began the day after my mother left. Jason created a spreadsheet detailing exactly what I could eat, when I could eat it and how much. Breakfast: 1 egg, half a slice of whole wheat toast, no butter. Lunch: 2 ounces of chicken, half a cup of vegetables. Dinner: similar to lunch, perhaps with a 1/4 cup of brown rice if Emma had nursed well that day. Breastfeeding mothers need protein and nutrients, not empty calories, he explained, as if I hadn't spent years as a nurse. "This plan gives you everything you need." It didn't. My body screamed for food, especially during night feedings when I'd sit in the nursery rocking chair, my stomach cramping with hunger while Emma nursed. My milk, initially abundant, began to decrease despite constant feeding. Emma fussed at my breast, pulling away frustrated, her tiny fingers kneading my chest as if trying to pump out more. "She's not gaining enough," Jason announced at her 2-week checkup, speaking before I could. "Sarah's milk must not be nutritious enough." The pediatrician, Dr. Myers, glanced at me bone-thin in my baggy sweater, then back at Emma's chart. "Sometimes it takes a while for feeding to establish," she said carefully. "How often is the baby nursing?" "Every 2 hours," Jason answered. "Sarah keeps a log." He produced a notebook where he and I recorded every feeding diaper change. "An ounce gained or lost. And how are you feeling, Sarah?" Dr. Myers asked, her kind eyes meeting mine. "Tired," I managed, aware of Jason's gaze boring into me. "But that's normal, right?" She nodded slowly. "New motherhood is exhausting, but you need to take care of yourself too. Are you eating enough?" Before I could answer, Emma began to cry. Jason immediately stood, taking her from my arms. "She needs a diaper change," he announced, effectively ending the conversation down at home. Jason implemented new rules. I had to pump after each feeding so he could measure exactly how much milk Emma was getting. The numbers were never good enough. 3 ounces? That's it? He'd scoff, holding up the collection bottle. No wonder she's always hungry. The constant pumping depleted me further, but yielded less and less milk. One night, desperate and shaking with hunger, I snuck into the kitchen while Jason slept. I found a package of crackers hidden in the back of the pantry and devoured 6 of them dry, standing over the sink so no crumbs would betray me. It was the most delicious thing I'd ever tasted. The next morning, Jason stood in the kitchen holding the open package. "Did you eat these?" he asked, his voice deadly quiet. I considered lying but knew it was useless. I was hungry, I whispered. His face darkened. You're sabotaging Emma's nutrition for crackers? For processed wheat and salt? I need more food to make milk, I tried to explain. The lactation consultant said, the lactation consultant doesn't know your body like I do, he snapped. You've always had a weight problem, Sarah. Always taken the easy way out. A weight problem? The words echoed in my head as I looked down at my protruding collarbones. My wrists so thin I could circle them with my thumb and middle finger. That night, I heard him in the kitchen. The next day, every cabinet had a small padlock dot by Emma's. 6-week checkup, my body was shutting down. My hair fell out in clumps, not the normal postpartum shedding, but entire handfuls. My period hadn't returned, though I wasn't exclusively breastfeeding anymore. My nails were brittle, my skin dry, and flaking. When I stood up quickly, black spots danced before my eyes. Jason canceled my postpartum checkup. You're fine, he insisted when I protested weakly. Why waste the copay? The truth was, he couldn't risk a medical professional seeing me. Not now. Not when the damage was so visible. Emma wasn't thriving either. At her appointment, she gained only 9 ounces in 2 weeks, half what was expected. Dr. Myers frowned at her chart. I'm concerned about her growth curve, she said. Are you supplementing with formula at all? Jason tensed beside me. Absolutely not. Breast is best. Dr. Myers looked directly at me. Sarah, sometimes mothers need help. There's no shame in supplementing. I nodded, tears filling my eyes. We need to see improvement by her next visit. Dr. Myers continued. If not, we'll need to discuss intervention. In the car, Jason gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened. She doesn't understand. Formula is poison. I won't have my daughter drinking chemicals. That night, after another failed nursing session with Emma screaming in hunger, I begged him. Please, Jason. She needs more than I can give her. His face softened, a reaction so unexpected it gave me hope. You're right, he said. We need to try something else. Relief flooded through me. Finally, he was being reasonable, but Jason's solution wasn't formula. It was goat's milk, raw, unpasteurized goat's milk from a farm outside town. It's the closest thing to human milk, he explained, pouring it into a bottle. Pure, natural, no processing. I knew enough about infant nutrition to be terrified. Raw milk could carry bacteria dangerous to a newborn. It lacked the right balance of nutrients. But arguing with Jason was pointless, and Emma was starving. Phone calls started the next day. My mother, then my father, asking why I never answered their texts, why I hadn't sent new baby pictures, why we'd canceled our plans for them to visit. Sarah's struggling with postpartum depression, Jason told them, his voice laden with false concern. The doctor says she needs space and time. No visitors, no pressure. My parents, worried but trusting, agreed to stay away. We're here when you need us, honey. My mother said on speakerphone while Jason listened. Just take care of yourself and that grandbaby. I tried to call her back the next day when Jason left for groceries, but my phone had been reset. All contacts deleted. Passcode changed. Our neighbor, Mrs. Winters, caught me in the driveway one afternoon when I was bringing in a package. She gasped audibly. Sarah, honey, are you ill? She asked, taking in my skeletal frame and dull eyes. Just tired, I mumbled. New baby. She didn't believe me. I could see it in the way she frowned, and how she glanced toward our front door as if expecting Jason to materialize. If you ever need anything at all, I'm right next door. She sighed pointedly and nodded, afraid to say more. Jason watched from the window. He installed new locks the following day. Too many break-ins in the neighborhood, he explained as he pocketed the only key. Hunger changes you. It sharpens some instincts while dulling others. It makes you cunning. Desperate animal. My world narrowed to a single focus, keeping Emma and myself alive. I learned to sip water constantly to dull the hunger pangs. I chewed ice cubes for the sensation of having something in my mouth. I licked the spoon after feeding Emma her goat's milk, savoring every drop. Small rebellions and visible victories dot my milk was almost gone, but I continued to put Emma to my breast, cherishing those moments of connection. Her frustrated cries as she sought nourishment tore at my heart. Sometimes, when she managed to extract a few precious drops, the look of relief on her tiny face was enough to break me. Then I discovered the formula. It happened by accident. Jason had sent me to the garage to look for a driver. In a dusty corner behind cans of paint and old sports equipment, I found a cardboard box. Inside were 6 cans of premium infant formula, receipt dated 3 weeks earlier. He'd been supplementing Emma himself while I slept, or when he took her for daddy time. He'd been feeding her the very thing he'd forbidden me to give her. The betrayal was shocking, but not surprising. In some twisted way, it made sense. He didn't care about formula's supposed dangers. He only cared about controlling me, weakening me, watching me fail. That night, when he thought I was asleep, I watched through barely open eyes as he mixed formula for Emma's middle-of-the-night feeding. He was gentle with her, cooing softly as she drank eagerly from the bottle. The tenderness he showed her made his cruelty toward me all the more bewildering. The next day, I began my secret campaign. While Jason was at work, I searched the house methodically, looking for anything edible. Behind the washing machine, I found an open package of crackers, one of my contraband items he confiscated but forgotten to throw away. I devoured half, then hid the rest in the lining of the nursery curtains in Emma's diaper bag. I discovered protein bars emergency. Snacks for him, not me. I took one, replaced the wrapper with tissue paper of the same weight, and tucked it under the loose corner of linoleum in the bathroom. Most importantly, I found where he hid the formula when not in use in a locked toolbox in the garage. The key was on his keyring, but the lock was cheap. A hairpin worked after some fumbling. Each day while he was gone, I fed Emma properly, gave myself a few extra calories, and covered my tracks meticulously. I watered down his goat's milk to the same level it had been before, making him think. She was still taking it. I weighed myself before and after eating to ensure the scale showed the same number when he checked. Emma began to improve almost immediately. Her cheeks filled out, she slept better. Her cries became less desperate, but my stolen calories weren't enough to rebuild my strength. By Emma's 3-month checkup, I dropped to 92 pounds. Walking from the car to the doctor's office felt like crossing a desert. Each breath required concentration. My heart fluttered irregularly in my chest. Dr. Myers noticed Emma's improvement immediately. "She's gained nearly a pound," she exclaimed. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up." Jason beamed, with pride taking full credit. "The goat's milk was the solution," he said. "All natural, just like I said." I said nothing. The room was starting to spin. If you believe no woman should ever face this kind of abuse alone, leave a like now. This next part is the hardest to tell. Morning of Emma's 3-month pediatric appointment dawned gray and cold. I woke with a strange sense of calm, as if my body had moved beyond panic to acceptance. My hands trembled constantly now. My hair had thinned so much that Jason had insisted I wear a scarf until it grows back properly. Emma was fussing in her crib. I lifted her, my arms shaking with the effort of holding my own child. Her weight a healthy weight now, thanks to the stolen formula, felt impossible to support. "Let me," Jason said, appearing in the doorway. He took her from me, his face a mask of concern. "You look terrible today." I nodded weakly. "I didn't sleep well." "Maybe you should stay home," he suggested, bouncing Emma gently. "I can take her to the appointment myself." The thought sent a spike of fear through me. If I wasn't there, what would he tell Dr. Myers? What new lies would he spin? "No," I insisted, surprising us both with my firmness. "I want to go." His eyes narrowed, but he nodded. "Fine, wear something decent." "You look like a cancer patient." I chose my baggiest sweater, trying to hide the protruding bones and sagging skin. In the bathroom, I splashed cold water on my face, pinched my cheeks for color. The woman in the mirror was a stranger, hollow-eyed, skeletal, haunted. Breakfast was the usual: half a piece of dry toast, 1 egg white. I chewed slowly, methodically, knowing I needed every calorie for what was coming. Stop dawdling, Jason snapped, already dressed in his coat. We'll be late. The drive to the pediatrician's office was silent, except for Emma's occasional coos from her car seat. Jason played classical music for the baby's brain development and kept the heat low despite the winter chill. I huddled in my seat, shivering. In the waiting room, I held Emma close, breathing in her sweet baby smell. She had Jason's dark hair and my blue eyes. So perfect, so innocent. She deserved better than this, better than a mother who couldn't protect her, a father who used her as a weapon. Wheeler? The nurse called. Jason stood immediately, reaching for Emma. I'll take her, he said. No, the word came out stronger than I expected. I've got her. His face darkened, but we were in public. He couldn't make a scene. The nurse led us to the exam room, chatting about the cold weather. She placed Emma on the scale, noting her weight with approval. 8 pounds, 4 ounces. She's gaining beautifully. Jason beamed as if he'd accomplished something extraordinary. We've been very focused on her nutrition. The nurse turned to me. Mom, let's get your weight too. Dr. Myers likes to track nursing mothers. Panic flashed through me. Jason stepped forward. That's not necessary. Sarah sees her own doctor. The nurse looked confused. It's standard procedure for breastfeeding moms. Just hop on the scale. I stood frozen, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. Jason's hand closed around my arm, his fingers digging in. She said it's not necessary, he repeated, his voice low and dangerous. The room began to tilt. Black spots danced at the edges of my vision. Emma, sensing my distress, began to cry a thin, high wail that pierced my consciousness. My baby needed me. My baby needed me to be brave. I handed Emma to the startled nurse and stepped onto the scale. The last thing I remember is the nurse's gasp as the numbers registered, and Jason's face contorted with rage as the room went black. I woke to the steady beep of a heart monitor and the cool sensation of 4 fluids flowing into my arm. The ceiling was white, institutional, hospital. I tried to sit up, panic immediately rising. Emma, I croaked, my voice barely audible. Where's Emma? Easy there, came a gentle voice. A nurse, not someone I recognized from my hospital, appeared at my bedside. You're at Memphis General. You collapsed at your daughter's pediatrician's office? My baby, I insisted, trying to pull out the 4. I need my baby. The nurse gently restrained my hand. Your daughter is fine. She's being cared for in pediatrics. Severe malnutrition and mild dehydration, but she recovered completely. Malnutrition? But I've been feeding her formula. She'd been gaining weight. The confusion must have shown on my face. The doctor will explain everything, the nurse said. She's been waiting for you to wake up. As if on cue, a tall woman in a white coat entered the room. Mrs. Wheeler, I'm Dr. Patel. I'm glad to see you're awake. You've been unconscious for nearly 18 hours. My husband? I asked, suddenly aware of his absence and terrified of his presence in equal measure. Something flickered across Dr. Patel's face. He's been asked to stay away for now. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by dread. Jason wouldn't accept being kept from me. He'd be furious. Mrs. Wheeler, Sarah, Dr. Patel said, pulling up a chair beside my bed. You were brought in with severe malnutrition, dehydration, and the beginning stages of organ failure. You weigh 92 pounds, which for your height puts you in a life-threatening category. I said nothing, my eyes fixed on a thin blanket covering my legs. Your daughter shows signs of inadequate feeding as well, though she's in better condition. Then you are? Can you tell me what's been happening at home? The question hung in the air between us. I'd rehearsed this moment in my mind 1,000 times, what I'd say if someone finally asked the right question. But now, faced with the opportunity, words failed me. My husband, ... I began, then stopped. How could I explain? How could anyone understand? Take your time, Dr. Patel said. She didn't reach for her chart or glance at her watch. She simply waited, her eyes kind but unflinching. He controls the food, I finally whispered. He decides what I eat when I eat. He says it's for my health, for Emma's health. Dr. Patel nodded, no judgment in her expression. How long has this been happening? Since we got married. But it got worse after Emma was born. And your daughter's feeding? He insisted on breastfeeding only, but I COULDN single quotes T dot dot. I wasn't producing enough milk. I was too. My voice broke. Too malnourished, Dr. Patel finished for me. It would have been physiologically impossible for you to produce adequate milk in your condition. I nodded, tears sliding down my face. I found formula he'd hidden. I've been giving it to her secretly when he's not home. Dr. Patel made a note. In her chart, that explains why she's in better condition than we'd expect given your state. You've been starving yourself to feed your child. Put that way, it sounded almost noble. The reality was messier, more desperate. Sarah, Dr. Patel said, her voice gentle but firm, what you're describing is abuse. Controlling food, isolating you, endangering both you and your child bees are serious domestic violence issues. The word landed like a physical blow, abuse. I'd been a nurse. I'd done the domestic violence screenings. I'd handed out the pamphlets, the hotline numbers, and still, I hadn't recognized it in my own life. We have resources that can help, Dr. Patel continued. But first, we need to get you stable medically. I closed my eyes, suddenly exhausted. What about Emma? She's being well cared for, and she's safe. Safe, the word I'd been reaching for since the moment she was born. On my third day in the hospital, I met Diane, a social worker with tired eyes and a determined set to her jaw. She sat beside my bed while I picked at my lunch reel food, more than I'd seen in months, though my shrunken stomach could only handle small portions. The hospital has filed a report with Child Protective Services, she explained. Standard. Procedure in cases like yours. Fear clenched my gut. Will they take Emma away? Diane shook her head. Not from you. Our concern is your husband. The pediatrician's report indicates a pattern of medical neglect and interference with necessary care. That, combined with your condition, raises serious red flags. She pulled out a folder. I've been reviewing your case. Your husband has been here every day demanding to see you. He's told staff you have postpartum psychosis, that you've been refusing to eat despite his efforts, that you're a danger to yourself and the baby. A bitter laugh escaped me. Of course he has. No one believes him, Diane assured me, but he's very convincing, very charming. I know. That charm had been my undoing from the start. Sarah, I need to ask you directly. Do you want to go back to him? The question hit me like cold water. No one had ever asked what I wanted before. No, I whispered, then stronger. No, I can't go back. He'll kill me eventually, even if he doesn't mean to. Diane nodded, unsurprised. Then we need a safety plan. Memphis has an excellent domestic violence shelter with facilities for women with children. They can provide temporary housing while we secure a protection order. A protection order. The words sounded so official, so final. This was really happening. What about Emma? How do I keep her safe? That's where this gets complicated, Diane admitted. Without documentation of direct abuse toward Emma, it might be difficult to completely prevent visitation. But given the circumstances, we can request supervised visits only, at least initially. My heart sank. The thought of Emma alone with Jason, even with supervision, terrified me. We're building a case, Diane continued. Dr. Myers has provided records showing Emma's growth issues and your husband's interference with medical recommendations. Dr. Patel has documented your malnutrition and its impact on your ability to breastfeed. The more evidence we collect, the stronger our position. She leaned forward. But Sarah, the strongest evidence is your testimony, your experience. Your words, my words. Words I'd swallowed for so long they felt foreign in my mouth. I'll need to get a job, I said, mind racing ahead. Somewhere to live after the shelter? I haven't worked since before Emma was born. All our money is in joint accounts that Jason controls. Diane smiled slightly. One step at a time. The shelter has resources for all of that job placement assistance, transitional housing programs, legal aid. You were a nurse, right? Those skills don't disappear. She was right. Before Jason, I'd been competent, independent. That woman was still inside me somewhere, buried beneath layers of fear and doubt. What do I tell him now? I asked. He's still out there waiting. You tell him nothing, Diane said firmly. The hospital's legal team has already informed him that due to your medical condition, you're being transferred to a specialized care facility. He doesn't need to know where. He won't accept that. He doesn't have a choice. You're an adult? Sarah, medically, you're your own decision maker. And you've stated clearly that you don't want to see him. For the first time in years, I felt a flicker of something like hope. When can I see Emma? Right now, if you feel up to it? She's been asking for you. Tears filled my eyes. My daughter remembered me. Somehow, in all the darkness, we'd formed a bond that even Jason couldn't break. I'm ready, I said, and I meant it in more ways than one dot after 5 days of medical treatment. I was deemed stable enough to leave the hospital, not healthy, not recovered, but no longer in immediate danger. My path forward was clear. The domestic violence shelter, then a protection order, then the long process of rebuilding a life for Emma and me, but first, I had to go home one last time. It's too dangerous, Diane argued when I explained my plan. Let the police escort you to collect your belongings. I shook my head. Jason will be at work. I need to get things he doesn't know about my birth certificate hidden in Emma's stuffed bear. The flash drive with photos of my parents, the small amount of cash I've managed to hide. Things the police wouldn't know to look for. She wasn't convinced, but I was determined. Eventually, we compromised. I would go during Jason's work hours. Accompanied by a victim advocate named Tessa, we would be quick in and out in 20 minutes. A patrol car would be parked down the street close enough to respond if needed. The morning of our planned visit, Dr. Patel came for a final check. Your labs are improving, she said, reviewing my chart. But full recovery will take time. You need to follow the nutritionist's plan exactly small, frequent meals, protein at every sitting, gradual increase in calories. I nodded, only half listening. My mind was already at the house, cataloging what to take, what to leave, how to navigate the space I'd once called home. Sarah, Dr. Patel said, drawing my attention back. You're doing the right thing. For yourself and for Emma. A lump formed in my throat. I stayed too long. I should have left sooner. You left, she said simply. That's what matters. The drive to my neighborhood felt surreal. Tessa, a calm woman in her 50s, kept up casual conversation, asking about Emma, about my nursing career, about anything except Jason. I was grateful for the distraction. We turned onto my street and my chest tightened. The house looked exactly as I'd left it 5 days ago, white shutters, neatly trimmed lawn, Jason's car gone from the driveway. Normal, safe, lies. We'll be quick, Tessa reminded me as we parked. Just the essentials. I used my key, the one thing Jason had never thought to take from me, and stepped into the silent house. The familiar smells hit me immediately. Laundry detergent, coffee, the faint scent of Emma's baby lotion. My body tensed automatically, conditioned to fear this. Space. Where should we start? Tessa asked. Emma's room, I said. Most of what I need is there. I moved with purpose, grabbing the diaper bag and filling it with Emma's clothes. Her favorite blanket, the stuffed bear with my documents sewn inside. Tessa found a small suitcase in the closet and helped me pack my own meager belongings, underwear. A few shirts, the one photo of my parents that had survived Jason's purge dot in the bathroom. I grabbed my toothbrush, Emma's baby shampoo. My wedding ring sat on the counter where I'd left it before my hospital shower. I left it there. 10 minutes left, Tessa warned, checking her watch. I nodded, heading to the kitchen. Behind the loose baseboard under the sink, I'd hidden $200 in emergency cash, saved from grocery money over months. I pried it loose with shaking fingers. That's when I heard it, the garage door opening. Jason wasn't supposed to come home for lunch. He never came home for lunch. We need to go, I whispered to Tessa. Now. We grabbed our bags and moved quickly toward the front door, but it was too late. The door from the garage to the kitchen opened, and there he stood. For a moment, nobody moved. Jason looked from me to Tessa, confusion giving way to understanding, then rage. "Sarah," he said, his voice deceptively soft. "You're home. I've been so worried." He took a step forward. Tessa moved subtly between us. "Mr. Wheeler," she said calmly, "I'm Tessa from Family Services. I'm helping Sarah collect some belongings for herself and Emma." "Family Services?" His face hardened. "There's been a misunderstanding. My wife has been ill. She needs to be home where I can take care of her." "That won't be possible," Tessa replied, her voice still even. "Sarah has made other arrangements." Jason's eyes locked on mine, that familiar look that had always made me shrink, comply, surrender. But something had changed in the hospital. The fog of fear had lifted, replaced by clarity. Emma needed me to be strong. "I'm not coming back, Jason," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "Emma and I are leaving." His face contorted. "You can't take my daughter. You're sick, Sarah. Unstable." He lunged forward suddenly, reaching for my arm. Cass's hand went to her pocket, pressing a button as silent alarm to the police waiting outside. "Don't touch me," I said, stepping back. "It's over." The front door burst open. 2 officers entered, hands on their weapons. "Is there a problem here?" one asked, though the scene told its own story. Jason transformed instantly, his rage masked by confusion and concern. "Officers, my wife is unwell. She's been in the hospital for mental health issues. She's not thinking clearly." "That's not true," I said, finding strength in the presence of witnesses. "I was hospitalized for malnutrition because he's been controlling my food. He's been starving me while I nursed our baby." The words hung in the air, raw and undeniable. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across Jason's perfect facade. "We're leaving now," I said, walking toward the door with a steadiness I didn't feel. The shelter was nothing like I'd imagined. Not the dingy, crowded space of TV dramas, but a secure apartment complex with cheerful common areas and private family rooms. Emma and I shared a small unit with a crib, a single bed, and a window that let in morning light. For the first time in years, I slept without fear. But peace was short-lived. 3 days after our arrival, the legal battle began. Jason's filed for emergency custody. Lena, the shelter's legal advocate, explained during our morning meeting. "He's claiming you kidnapped Emma and are mentally unfit to care for her." My stomach dropped. "Can he do that?" "He can try," Lena said, her voice matter-of-fact. "The good news is we've already filed for your temporary protection order, and we have medical documentation of your condition. The burden is on him to prove you're unfit, not on you to prove you're fit." Still, the next weeks became a blur of courtrooms and legal terminology. I learned the difference between a temporary and permanent protection order, between joint legal and physical custody, between supervised and unsupervised visitation. Jason hired an expensive attorney who wore tailored suits and spoke with practiced concern about my mental health crisis and irrational behavior. Our side countered with medical records, Dr. Patel's testimony, and photographs documenting my physical condition upon hospitalization. "Your Honor," Jason's attorney argued during one hearing, "Mrs. Wheeler has a history of body image issues and disordered eating. My client did everything possible to encourage proper nutrition, especially during her pregnancy and breastfeeding period. He's been nothing but supportive." I watched Jason on the stand, marveling at his performance, the concerned husband, the devoted father, the victim of a wife's postpartum psychosis. Had I not lived through his cruelty, I might have believed him myself. Then it was my turn to testify. "Mrs. Wheeler," my attorney began, "can you tell the court about your daily food intake while living with your husband?" My voice shook at first as I described the measured portions, the locked cabinets, the constant surveillance. But as I continued explaining how Jason monitored my weight multiple times daily, how he withheld food as punishment, how he sabotaged, My breastfeeding then blamed me for Emma's hunger. My resolve strengthened. He told me it was for my own good, I concluded. That I always had weight problems, that he knew better than doctors what my body needed. After a while, I believed him. The judge, an older woman with shrewd eyes, watched me carefully throughout my testimony. When I finished, she asked a single question. Mrs. Wheeler, at what point did you realize your husband's behavior was abusive? I considered this, aware of Jason's stare from across the courtroom. When I woke up in the hospital, I answered honestly. When the doctor told me I was 92 pounds and an organ failure. When I realized that trying to please my husband had nearly killed me. The courtroom was silent. 2 days later, the judge granted my protection order and awarded me temporary full custody of Emma. Jason would have supervised visitation only twice monthly at a court-approved facility. This isn't over, he hissed as we left the courtroom. You'll never keep my daughter from me. His words sent ice through my veins, but I didn't let him see my fear. I'd spent too long being afraid. She's our daughter, I corrected him. And I'm not keeping her from you, I'm keeping her safe. For the first time since I'd known him, Jason had no response. The shelter's transitional housing program helped me find a small one-bedroom apartment in a secure building across town. Nothing fancy beige walls, worn carpet, appliances from the previous decade, but it was ours. The day Emma and I moved in, I stood in the empty living room and wept with gratitude. Recovery came in small victories. The first time I ate a full meal without feeling guilty. The first night I slept without nightmares. The first morning I looked in the mirror and didn't immediately search for flaws. My body slowly healed, bones no longer protruding, hair growing back, strength returning to my limbs. Emma thrived too. By 6 months, she was a chubby, babbling bundle of energy, hitting every developmental milestone right on schedule. The haunted look in her eyes, something I hadn't fully acknowledged until it disappeared, gave way to bright curiosity. She smiled at strangers, reached for toys, explored her world with fearless enthusiasm. Financial independence was my next mountain to climb. The Victims' Compensation Fund and temporary assistance kept us afloat initially. But I needed stability, a career and identity beyond survivor. You were a nurse, Diane reminded me during one of our weekly check-ins. Those skills are valuable. So I applied for a license reinstatement, updated my certifications, and landed a part-time position at a women's health clinic, 3 days a week, with hours that allowed me to minimize childcare costs. The clinic director, herself a domestic violence survivor, became a mentor and ally. Healing is part of the job description here, she told me on my first day, for our patients and ourselves. I found surprising strength in helping other women taking histories, offering resources, recognizing the signs I'd missed in myself. Sometimes I'd catch a patient's eye and see my own story reflected back. The careful way she answered questions about home life, the long sleeves in summer, the deference to an always present partner. We have private exam rooms if you prefer, I'd offer. The code we used to create safe spaces for disclosure. Some took the opportunity to speak freely. Others weren't ready. I understood both choices intimately. Emma started at a small daycare. 3 mornings a week, another milestone that brought both anxiety and pride. I'd watch her playing with other children, her laughter uninhibited, and marvel at her resilience. My parents visited regularly, making the drive from Arkansas every few weeks. They never asked for details about my marriage, respecting my silence. But their quiet support spoke volumes. Dad assembled furniture for our apartment. Mom filled our freezer with homemade meals. You look more like yourself, she told me one evening as we sat on my tiny balcony, watching the sunset while Emma slept inside. I didn't realize how much of you had disappeared until I started seeing it come back. I knew what she meant. The old Sarah, the one who had dreams and opinions and boundaries, was re-emerging slowly, like a Polaroid developing. Jason maintained his twice-monthly visitations with Emma, always impeccably dressed, always armed with new toys and endless patience. The supervision seemed to chafe, but he complied, determined to present himself as the perfect father. Sometimes I wondered if he truly loved her or simply saw her as an extension of himself. Another thing to control in perfect Emma always returned. From these visits, subdued, clingy for hours afterward, I'd hold her close, reading her favorite books until she relaxed in my arms. "It's okay, sweet girl," I'd whisper. "Mama's here." And I was stronger each day, more determined, rebuilding our life brick by careful brick. The therapist's office became my sanctuary, 1 hour each week where I could speak my darkest truths without filter, without fear. Dr. Levine, with her calm voice and unshakable composure, guided me through the wreckage of my marriage, helping me understand patterns I'd been blind to. "Abusers don't start with violence," she explained during one session. "They start with charm, with love bombing, with setting themselves up as the authority on your life. The physical control comes later, after the emotional foundations are laid." I thought about Jason's early attentiveness, how special it had made me feel, how quickly it had transformed into surveillance, then control, then harm. Why didn't I see it? I asked, the question that haunted my sleepless nights. "Because it was designed to be invisible," she replied. "And because you were taught, like many women, that love means sacrifice. That a good wife puts her husband's needs first. That hunger is more virtuous than satisfaction." These sessions often left me raw, emotions flooding through cracks in the walls I built. Sometimes I'd sit in my car afterward, sobbing until I was empty, then put myself back together before picking up Emma from daycare. The pain was necessary, Dr. Levine assured me. Part of healing. Group therapy was different, less intense, but equally powerful. Sitting in a circle with other survivors, hearing their stories, I found both solidarity and perspective. Some had endured physical violence, others psychological torture, still others financial abuse that left them destitute. Different methods, same goal: control. "The first year is the hardest," said Maria, 5 years out from her own escape. "You're rebuilding everything from scratch: your home, your sense of self, your ability to trust. It gets easier, I promise." I clung to these promises on bad days, when trauma ambushed me in unexpected moments. The time I panicked in the grocery store, abandoning my cart because I couldn't decide what brand of cereal to buy without hearing Jason's criticism. The night I woke drenched in sweat, convinced he was standing over my bed. The afternoon I caught myself cutting my sandwich into precisely measured quarters, a habit I didn't know I formed. Emma's first birthday arrived in spring, a milestone that seemed impossible during those dark months of her infancy. We celebrated with a small party in a neighborhood park. My parents, a few colleagues from the clinic, 2 mothers from our parenting group. No elaborate decorations or professional photos, just cupcakes and balloons and the simple joy of survival. Emma toddled between guests, babbling her handful of words, Mama the clearest among them. I watched her, this miracle who had sustained me when I had nothing else to live for, and felt a fierce, protective love that still took my breath away. Jason sent an expensive doll, delivered by courier with a card signed, "Love, Daddy." I added it to the growing collection of pristine toys he provided, most of which Emma ignored in favor of wooden blocks and cloth books. That night, after Emma was asleep, I wrote in my journal another therapy assignment that had become a lifeline. Dr. Levine encouraged me to document both struggles and victories, no matter how small. "Made it through Emma's birthday without crying," I wrote. "Ate cake, enjoyed it, didn't count calories or feel guilty. Mom says I look healthy." Starting to believe it might be true. Small steps, quiet triumphs. The long, slow journey back to myself. At my next therapy session, Dr. Levine asked about my nightmares, their frequency, their content, their impact on my sleep. "They're changing," I realized as we talked. Before, I was always trapped, always starving, always trying to protect Emma while getting weaker. Now I'm still afraid, but I'm fighting back. "Last night, I actually got away." She nodded, a small smile touching her lips. "Your subconscious is catching up with your reality, Sarah. You did get away." I had. Against all odds, I had escaped. And with each day that passed, each small victory won. The distance between that life and this one grew wider. 5 years passed, like seasons changing, sometimes quickly, sometimes painfully slow, but always moving forward. Emma grew from toddler to little girl, her dark hair now falling in waves past her shoulders. Her blue eyes, my eyes bright with intelligence and curiosity. She started kindergarten at the neighborhood elementary school, made friends easily, brought home art projects that covered our refrigerator. I grew too, in less visible, but equally profound ways. My nursing career advanced from part-time clinic, worked to a full-time position as a charge nurse in labor and delivery. I bought a small townhouse with a postage stamp backyard where Emma could play. I learned to trust my instincts again, to recognize hunger as a normal biological function rather than a moral failing, to take up space unapologetically. Jason remained a carefully managed presence in our lives. The supervised visits eventually gave way to unsupervised afternoons, then occasional overnight stays at his immaculate new condo. Our communications were strictly limited to Emma's needs, conducted primarily through a co-parenting app that documented everything. Emma never spoke much about these visits, and I didn't press her, but I noticed how she'd check the contents of my refrigerator when she returned, her small face serious as she opened cabinets and drawers. "Just making sure we have food," she explained once when I asked what she was looking for. The comment broke my heart and strengthened my resolve. She would never know hunger as I had. Dating seemed impossible for years. The very idea of romantic intimacy sending panic through my system. But eventually, carefully, I allowed myself to connect with Michael, a kind-eyed history teacher I met at a school fundraiser. Our relationship progressed slowly, deliberately, with clear boundaries and constant communication. The first time he stayed for breakfast, Emma watched him intently as he flipped pancakes and slid an extra one onto my plate without comment. "You can eat as many as you want, Mom," she announced, glancing between us. "Michael doesn't count." Michael's confused expression met my pained one across the table. Later, after Emma left for school, I explained just the outline, none of the devastating details. He listened without interruption, then took my hand. Gently. "Thank you for trusting me with that," he said simply. And somehow sharing that piece of my past made it feel more distant, less defining. On Emma's 6th birthday, Jason arrived at her party with news. He was remarrying, moving to Chicago for his fiancée's job. He wanted to modify the custody arrangement to longer but less frequent visits, school holidays, part of summer break. It would be more stable for Emma, he argued. Less back and forth. The suggestion sent me spiraling briefly, old fears of him taking Emma far away, beyond my protection. But my therapist helped me see the potential benefits, more consistency in Emma's daily life, fewer transitions, less of Jason's influence. Overall, we negotiated the new arrangement through mediators. I held my ground on certain points, no international travel without my written consent, daily video calls during extended visits, immediate return if Emma showed any signs of distress. Jason, eager to start his new life, conceded more easily than I expected. When I shared the news with my parents, my father asked the question I'd been avoiding. "Do you think he'll do to his new wife what he did to you?" I considered this, thinking of the elegant, accomplished woman Jason had shown off at Emma's last school concert. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "But I'm not responsible for warning her. I can only protect Emma and myself." It was a hard-won boundary, this understanding that I couldn't save everyone, couldn't even save myself until I was ready. Some lessons must be learned firsthand, however painful. On Emma's last weekend visit before Jason's move, she returned with a new understanding of her father. "Daddy says I shouldn't eat so much ice cream because I'll get fat," she reported matter-of-factly during dinner. "Is that true, Mom?" I set down my fork, choosing my words carefully. "Ice cream is food, Emma. All food gives our bodies energy. Some foods give us more nutrients than others, but no food is bad or makes you bad for eating it." She nodded, processing this. "That's what I thought," she said, returning to her meal. 10 years to the day after my collapse in that pediatric waiting room, I found myself back in the same medical building, not as a patient, but as the newly appointed director of nursing for women's services. Life has a strange way of bringing us full circle sometimes, I paused outside the entrance, remembering. That day, the dizziness, the hunger, the terror. Emma as an infant, slipping from my arms as my body finally surrendered. The moment that had both broken and saved me. Now, Emma was a confident 10-year-old with her father's dark hair and my determination, carrying a backpack too full of books, and wearing mismatched socks by choice. She'd insisted on coming to work. With me today, on this anniversary neither of us acknowledged explicitly. "Is this the place, Mom?" she asked, looking up at the building. I nodded, taking her hand. This is it. Inside, the waiting room had been renovated, brighter colors, more comfortable chairs, a play area for children. But the essence remained the same. That distinctive mix of antiseptic and anxiety that permeates all medical spaces. As we walked through to my new office, a gray-haired doctor emerged from an exam room. I recognized her immediately. Dr. Myers, Emma's first pediatrician, the one who had frowned over growth charts and asked the questions I couldn't answer. She didn't recognize me at first. Why would she? The hollow-eyed, skeletal woman clutching a malnourished infant existed only in medical records now. "Dr. Myers," I said, extending my hand. "I'm Sarah Campbell, the new nursing director. We met many years ago under different circumstances." Confusion crossed her face, then dawning recognition. Her eyes widened as she looked from me to Emma, and back again. "Mrs. Wheeler," she breathed. "My God." "Miss Campbell now," I corrected gently. "And this is Emma." Emma, accustomed to being the subject of such moments, smiled politely and shook the doctor's hand. "Nice to meet you," she said with the social grace of a child who has learned to navigate adult complexities. Dr. Myers seemed unable to reconcile the thriving pair before her with the desperate cases in her memory. "You look wonderful," she managed finally. "Both of you." We chatted briefly about my new position, about Emma's interest in science, about the hospital's recent renovations. Normal, collegial conversation that belied the significance of our previous encounters. As Dr. Myers continued to her next appointment, she paused. "You know," she said quietly, "days like that one when you collapsed, they stay with us. I've thought about you too often over the years, hoped you were okay." "We are," I assured her. "More than okay." In my new office, Emma settled at the small conference table with her homework while I organized my desk. The weight of the moment, this return to the place where everything had changed, felt significant, but no longer overwhelming. It was just another chapter in our story now. That evening, I attended my first meeting as a volunteer mentor with the Domestic Violence Survivors Network. The same organization that had once sheltered Emma and me now welcomed me as a peer support provider. The circle complete. The women in the group shared their stories, some fresh from crisis, others years into recovery. When my turn came, I spoke plainly about my experience. The whirlwind romance, the gradual isolation, the food control that nearly killed me, the escape that saved us both. I told them about rebuilding my career, about raising Emma to recognize her own worth, about learning to trust again. "It doesn't happen overnight," I concluded. "Healing isn't linear. Some days still feel like sliding backward. But you find your footing again, step by step." Afterward, a young mother approached me privately, her infant daughter asleep against her shoulder. "He says I'm too fat to be a good mother," she whispered. "Says he's just trying to help me be healthy." I met her eyes, saw my younger self reflected there. "That's not help," I said gently. "And you don't have to face it alone." As I drove home, Emma half asleep in the passenger seat, I thought about the long journey from victim to survivor to thriver, about the woman I'd become stronger than I believed possible, more compassionate because of my scars rather than despite them. "Mom," Emma murmured, rousing slightly. "Are you okay?" I reached across to squeeze her hand. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm okay, we both are. And we were. Imperfectly, wonderfully okay. Subscribe to this channel if you believe in second chances. Leave a comment with the words, "I survived." So I know you're out there too.